Before I share the interview between Skyler Williams and myself, recorded a few days ago from 1492 Landback Lane, I wanted to point out that by recording this interview, where and when we did, Skyler is risking his freedom in doing so. Skyler Williams is a model of civil disobedience that hardly exists anymore. He's risking his freedom and potentially his life to defend what he believes to be just and right. I struggled with whether to share this or not. I struggled to share this because I don't want to help the Crown build a case against this peaceful land defender using my interview and what was said to do so. During this interview, as you will hear later, I discussed this concern with Skyler, and he was prepared for what might result from our conversation. Around that time, I also note that while the Ontario Provincial Police are zealous in their criminalization of indigenous persons and reporters, I doubt they will seek my detention because of my race, because of my privilege. I sincerely hope that this doesn't come off the wrong way, or that this comes off as a challenge to the Crown or the OPP to arrest or charge me. I just recognize that I am far less likely to be detained, charged, or violently assaulted or killed because of my ethnicity than, say, my brothers or sisters in the Six Nations community. In an effort to be honest and transparent, I have left this interview unedited. I haven't cut anything out. Nothing is on the cutting room floor. I wanted you to hear Skyler's brilliant insight and his lived experiences, punctuated with my naive and remedial questions. Here is the interview. Perfect. Okay, there we go. So can you say and spell your name for me?
Skyler Williams, SKYLER WILLIAMS.
Perfect. And do I have your permission to record and share this interview?
You certainly do.
Awesome. Thank you. So I always like to, because a lot of the people that I've been talking to over the past 2 to 3 weeks that like follow me on social media and whatnot, a lot of them don't know much about what's going on. A lot of them, because the news is doing an inadequate job telling the story of what's happening here. Plus, with all the corona footage, all other news is being squashed into like the last block, right?
Yep.
So can you just explain the basics of like what's happening and why?
Historically, like the land claim for Six Nations is a large one. It covers the Grand River, which is just west of Toronto in the north to near the Fort Erie, a town called Port Maitland, where it opens up into the Lake Erie. And so it's 6 miles on either side of the Grand River. And so that whole tract of land was broken up into different kind of communities of Six Nations people, and the one that we're sitting on currently is Oneida Township. It used to be an Oneida settlement before it became part of Haldimand, Norfolk. And so this particular spot here was a land deal that a coercive land deal that included some of leadership at the time, and there was an agreement for an amount of money that was paid to the Indian Land Trust. That land trust was then divvied up into different infrastructure works, the Welland Canal, roads, bridges, and the like across all of Canada. And so all of our money that was used to develop most of the country was then just eaten away and never returned. And so the government of Canada putting the Brits before that were, you know, taking it from their right pocket and putting it in their left pocket. And Six Nations people have insisted for, you know, the last 100 years. And I mean, before 1960, it was illegal for us as indigenous people to even hire a lawyer to be able to defend ourselves. Mm-hmm. And so asking, you know, Haudenosaunee people why, like, I think that's a question a lot of us get is, well, why didn't you say something, you know, 50 or 100 years ago? Well, we couldn't. Mm-hmm. It was impossible for us to do that in a very real way anyways. That wasn't just building more case law against our people. So that was kind of the crux of why we're here. And so this spot here and this development is, I think most of them kind of mainstream media is just kind of hanging on the 218 houses that are being built right now. And again, people keep asking, like, well, why didn't you do that, but do the move in here before, you know, any work was started here? Well, we are here way before the majority of the work was started here, like, because this is 1,400 houses over a 3 kilometer by 1 kilometer wide tract of land. Like, the spot that we're on here is about 25 acres. You know, it's about an eighth. It is the very first phase of a much bigger development.
Oh, so this is the beginning.
This is phase one. This is the testing ground. This is the testing ground to see whether or not Indigenous people like myself that are willing to make the stand that we are, to see whether or not we'd come out of the woodwork to stop ongoing development.
And because this is phase one, that's why it's so important, right? Because
Absolutely.
Everything pivots after.
This is it. And so this particular development, being that it's directly across the road from the 2006 reclamation, for me personally, I was involved in there and spent, you know, a year in the bush down there and then 7 months in jail for that. And so if you're going to roll up a 1,400 home development directly across the road from a kind of a flashpoint in history of Six Nations and certainly of Caledonia, to be able to say like development needs to be agreed on a massive consultation. That the consultation that happened was with 66 people in our community, and even amongst those 66 people, there was a resounding no to development. And so the consultation and accommodation part of that, the accommodation part was $352,000 that was paid to the band council, along with a small parcel of land next to the town dump in Hagersville, landfill site. And so yeah, it is a trying thing, and people get really upset with band council for kind of penning this deal with Foxgate Developments. And as far as I'm concerned, I have no blame for them at all, because the thing is if they take the money and development rolls on, or they say no and they don't take the money but development rolls on anyway.
Yeah.
And so there is no accommodation from anybody on. It's certainly not seen that way from our side. Yeah. And the band council in our particular instance is such a small portion of our community that, like, consultation and accommodation with this select group or that select few, or this family or that family, I think it is a kind of persistent thing from the government, and certainly the police, the RCMP before the OPP, and the British before that, is that they look for every crack in our community to drive wedges in, and have consistently did that throughout our history here in this, along the banks of the Grand River. And so when people talk about, why, if your community is so divided, why are we even having any discussions? Well, if you are the cause of all of those divisions, if the government and the OPP, the RCMP, and the Brits before that are the cause of all of those divisions, if they're the cause of it, then they can't take advantage of the fact that they've caused all of those divisions. And so, for me personally, like I have no ill intent towards any of those groups or families or factions or whatever you want to call them in our community, because the one thing that everybody across our community is resoundingly said is that this is our land, and that land claims need to be about more than dollars and cents.
So what's happening legally right now? Because I know there's 2 injunctions, but what is another approach, or how is your side approaching this in court? I'm just curious as to what's their argument. And I apologize if these questions are remedial.
No, absolutely not. I mean, so for us, I mean, for me personally, the Canadian courts, or in this particular case, Ontario Superior Court, is like, we are a whole nother country. Like, I am not a Canadian citizen. I am a Haudenosaunee man. My family are Haudenosaunee people, and to say that we are somehow subject to its actions or its decisions or their you wouldn't go to the U.S. and start trying to arrest people for asserting their rights over their own territory, and so and if Canada pushed into the U.S. and start trying to build a 1,400 home development, I think Donald Trump might have something to say about that.
Absolutely.
But you know what? It's easier to beat up on Native people.
Yeah, kicking down, right?
Absolutely.
The world seems to really be kicking down on a lot of people.
This is it.
Everywhere, like not
Absolutely.
just here. But it's tragic that it's happening here, because I think a lot of Canadians, settlers, believe that we're above this, right? That Canada espouses all of these ideals. We tell other countries how that they should treat
Certainly.
their own people, but we're not necessarily practicing what we preach.
Well, and I think that nation-to-nation relationship that Justin Trudeau had run on and been able to get a massive swell of Indigenous people across the country to vote for him. Those nation-to-nation relationships are what we've been saying for the last 100 years. And so for Canada to use its court system and this particular developer to be able to use the courts and by hand of those courts, the OPP, to enforce through violent action, tasering and dragging off. There was lots of knees and backs of necks, and one young man is going to have some scars on his face for the rest of his life from what happened on the day of the raids. And so for me personally, to feel rubber bullets, the breeze of rubber bullets brushing past your ear, and remember that those rubber bullets came out of 12-gauge shotguns, and nobody yelled out at the beginning of it all, hey, we're shooting rubber bullets. Yeah. It was just a 12-gauge shotgun pointed in your face with fingers on triggers and letting those bullets fly past your ears. And
the raid happened last month, or 2 months ago now?
Day 17, so we're at day 50 now.
Yeah, okay, so a little bit, about over a month ago. Okay.
Yeah.
And
it feels like it was yesterday.
Well, I'm sure, right, with everything that's been going on. So what happened the day of the raid? How many people were arrested?
There was 9 people, including myself among them.
Okay.
And all of us were given conditions not to return to our own territory.
Okay. So, and you don't have to answer this, but you because you are here, you are violating those conditions, right?
I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm not asking, again, if you want, I can remove this. I don't want you to get in trouble, but you're okay with leaving that in?
Yeah.
Okay. So you know what you're doing, and you see this as a moral.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. Okay.
No. This is me honoring my law.
Okay.
Like we have a democracy here in Six Nations that is one that has existed for over 1,000 years.
Yeah.
And so we have our own laws and customs and ways of doing things, and our law obligates me to be here.
Okay.
And so, and then as well as Canadian law, has to respect the fact that our laws have existed there. And so the idea that in law that those two things can coexist at the same time is a part of your law as well as mine.
Yeah, absolutely. And when Trudeau was running on nation-to-nation talks, nation-to-nation communications, you said there was a swell in support. Did you trust him when he made those promises?
I mean, I involve myself in Canadian politics as much as I involve myself in Russian politics or Kazakhstanian politics or Mexican politics. Like it's a foreign country for me, and so I have no business.
Okay.
And so, as far as whether or not I trusted him or not, I
played no mind.
To kind of see the white paper that his father had put out, and then now to kind of see the white paper 2.0, or the like the next version, but it's been painted with this brush of reconciliation and residential schools, and watching the poor fella cry on TV, being consoled by one of the people from my community, because it was so heartbreaking. Like this, and that in the same breath, it's sending 100 OPP officers, like tactical armed OPP officers, in to shoot rubber bullets at unarmed people sitting around a fire singing our traditional songs and practicing our cultural way of life.
Yeah. So one of the things that I've read recently on other channels and including my own space online is, and this is played out in other issues down south of the border with the pipelines, in our country with the pipelines, is there seems to be some, I don't know, maybe misunderstanding or lack of understanding between what is the difference between a hereditary tribe, I believe, or band versus a band council. So
our Confederacy chiefs, the ones that I was talking about, the over 1,000-year-old democracy that we have, those chief titles stay in that family for forever.
Okay.
There are 50 chief clan titles in our Confederacy, and so each family has a hereditary chief in it, and that clan that within each nation there are several clans, and so within the Mohawks that I am, there's 9 clan families, and so each of us belong to one of those clan families, one of those 9 clan families, and so when we have an issue, within our family, we go and see our chief, and then if that issue can't be dealt with within that family and it has a broader issue, then we'll take that to our nation. Okay. And if our nation can't deal with it, then we go to all the nations. And so the 5 nations of the Confederacy are the Mohawks, the Senecas, the Oneidas, the Cayugas, and the Onondagas. And so there's a process that, like, Red Jacket gifted this idea to George Washington, and before the Revolutionary War, as this idea that of how to govern a society, and that's where the American forefathers took directly from, and there's lots of documentation about it that these were conversations that were had back in the day.
Now, so when I was here, I believe it was last weekend, I was just listening to some people talking, and from what I gather, and correct me if I'm wrong, from what I gather, these band councils that are the ones that are making deals with land developers or with pipelines, those did not exist pre...
for 6 Nations in particular, band council was enforced here at gunpoint of the RCMP in 1924. Okay. There was some arrests made with the hereditary chiefs at the time.
Okay.
And so our hereditary chiefs is that Confederacy Council.
Okay.
And so those people were arrested at the time and thrown in jail, and this band council was installed in its place.
And so the band councils basically exist as a construct of European settlers.
So and it's exactly what it is. And then they set up just like a municipal government with a mayor and councilman. And so, but because you have to wash it in Indianness, and so you call it a chief instead of a mayor.
And again, these exist is there often conflict between the bands and the traditional tribal chiefs, band chiefs? Is there like conflict, or is this more happening now?
No, there's been an existing kind of conflict between the two of them because
from day one.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, when you drag people away from their lands and throw them in jail for practicing their 1,000-year-old democracy, and install a de facto Canadian government in
something
its place,
entirely alien to
us, which includes an election and voting for things that is something like our people have never done.
Okay.
And so like for me personally, like I'd be disowned as a son if I participated in the
electoral
government's oppression. It's participating in the hand of our own oppression.
What is the ultimate outcome? Like, what do you hope? What is the resolution to what's happening here?
Well, I mean, like
I know it's like it sounds like a silly question, but
it's not a silly question.
Okay.
But it's a big question.
It is a very big question.
And so, if what does a win look like? Is I think what you're asking.
Exactly.
And so,
and it can be here or it can be broader.
So in 2006, the tract of land that now sits that used to be Douglas Creek Estates is now Gunnestotum, was the big standoff we had there. And Ontario stepped up to the plate at the time, and that Liberal government bought out the developer to the tune of I think $17 million, and bought the land off of them, and has held it in trust ever since.
Okay.
And so our people, 15 years later, are still there. And so, in terms of this land here, like as well as there, like I don't need Ontario or Canada or, by lesser means, the Haldimand County to give me the deed to this land, or to give our people the deed to this land, because we have it.
Yeah, exactly.
We have it already.
Okay.
We know we have the paperwork to prove it, and and in 2006 they came to the table and they said, "Well, we thought that you intended to surrender the land." And that was their argument for why that parcel of land was surrendered, because we thought that you intended to surrender it. Mm-hmm. That was their final argument when they walked away from the table at that time. And so we didn't intend to surrender anything. And so when we come here in the peaceful way that we have, like even the first day that we came here on a Sunday evening, so that the police would have enough time to be able to contact the developer and tell it
before Monday morning rolled around. Yeah, I remember reading that. Yeah,
and so that was like a very deliberate move on our part to make sure that because like the developer, as far as I'm concerned, is just a middle person in all of this that's got stuck in between something that he had no intention of getting himself into. Mm-hmm. And so like that bit of it is really important part of that, because like I have no ill feelings towards the developer or anything. Okay. That
so a lot
maybe
of people,
other people might have different feelings about it.
But
I mean, but me personally, I'm on the hook for the $20 million that they're asking for in damages for the injunction.
Yeah. I'm legitimately worried about sharing this interview, because again, I don't want to put you in a position, right?
I'm already in the position.
You're already in the position. Yeah. Okay. No, I just, I want to get this story out there, and I want to be able to share it with anybody that'll listen.
And I would absolutely encourage you to do that.
But I never want to do it at the cost of someone's liberty or security.
So here's the thing is like I'm only one person, and that's important, and was a deliberate thing that we as a group decided at the outset of this, that one of us had to fall on the sword, if you will,
Okay.
in order to do this.
And you're the goat tied to the chain this time, right?
This is the goat
Yeah.
tied to the chain,
Okay.
yeah, waiting for the T-Rex to come out of the bush. Yeah.
I
And so for me, anyways, like if that's the small part that I can do is to talk to folks like yourself to be able to tell the tale,
okay.
because you know what, it needs to be told and it needs to be said that like our people are tired of the lack of understanding and knowledge around who we are as Haudenosaunee people. And so the more that I can get out and tell this story to you and to anybody that'll listen, and I think I've said that like a million times to like anybody that wants to.
Yeah, that's why I'm really here, because the other I'm a microscopic, you know, piece of dust compared to, you know, the media here, right? But they're not here, and that actually is really what angers me. And I'll see CH vans parked across the street, and they'll be getting their footage, but they're not telling the story, right? They're just they're saying that it's coming off as a land dispute between like Haldimand County and a developer or whatever, right?
And I understand that this part of the like holding space on our land is not the sexy part of
exactly,
of
right.
land defense.
Especially when you're doing it peacefully and you're just celebrating your heritage, right?
That's right.
Yeah, it's not something that
So
will
like
get
as
attention.
we sit here right now, you can listen to the water drums
I
in
hear
the
it, yes,
background,
yeah.
and like people singing and telling stories and laughing.
And
Yesterday was the lacrosse game. And,
I was going to come
the
out
jam,
yesterday.
and,
I couldn't be here. And normally I come on Saturdays, but
Yeah.
this being a long weekend, Saturday got a little bit busy for me. But I wanted to make, because every week I'm coming out here. And there's basically two more questions that I have. The first question is, what do you wish the media could or should do differently about this story?
Well, and I mean, I think we've seen most recently that like indigenous media in particular have been targeted for doing the same work that you're doing.
Yeah.
Courtney Sky and Carl Dockstader both were arrested just recently for spending as much time as they have down here trying to garner the same information that you're getting.
Mm-hmm.
And so that
I'm curious to see if they'll do anything with me. I seriously doubt it, because of the color of my skin, right?
And so this is
And the
this is a
heritage.
problem.
Yeah.
This is a problem.
Right.
And so when indigenous media, and it is also included in the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People,
Absolutely.
that Canada has now endorsed, and BC has endorsed, but Ontario is kind of late to the table because they understand what that means.
Yeah. It's dangerous, right?
Absolutely.
They see it as being dangerous.
Absolutely. And you're going to have a hard time running. Ford's going to have a hard time running in the next election if he's ceding to the fact that you know, all of these rights that Indigenous people have, and for us in particular, having being on the Grand River, like when a quarter of the entire country lives in Southern Ontario, and we live in the most lucrative real estate market, and all of that.
Yeah.
Is like that's you know, trillions of dollars.
Yeah. With his primary backers being real estate and land development.
Absolutely.
You can see what the fight that's coming down.
You're absolutely right.
Just on the horizon there. The other question I have, I know the media one is hard. They're just do a better job, right? That's
Just
the
do a
answer.
better
Yeah,
job.
just do a better
Absolutely.
job. The question I have for me specifically is, how can I do a better job of telling your story?
This right here, absolutely, building those relationships, and I think that was something like Carl was trying to do, because Carl is not from here. He's from Oneida and lives in Niagara Falls, and
we're not neighbors, but we live in the same city, so yeah.
And so he came down and started building relationships.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do.
Absolutely,
Slowly.
and this is and that's the thing, is like, as a you know, non-Indigenous person, to be able to come down and start building those relationships and building those bridges, so that, you know, the next time that you're here, like you know, I recognize
people
your
start
voice.
recognizing
This is
my
it.
face. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so for Carl to have started doing that work and be punished for it is absolutely ridiculous, because you need to be able to do that work in order to get the story.
Do you have a message for Carl? I know you just spoke with him, but do you have a message for Carl? 'Cause he'll
Absolutely.
eventually hear this.
And he's you know what, Carl's a brother of mine, and I'll stand beside him 100% and do whatever I can to help him in whatever way that I can, because like the work that he was doing about like doing those building those relationships, and making sure that like, you know, we're both taken care of, regardless of how the state wants to punish us for what it is that we're doing.
Yeah. Do you know what your future holds in terms of, like, do you fear them coming in today, tomorrow, the day after, and just taking you away for good, or?
Absolutely. I mean, if I said I wasn't afraid of it, then I'd be lying to you, because you know what, there's a lot of women and kids and folks like yourself that come out here that, you know, have you know, no want to be involved in a massive police siege. Mm-hmm. And that's how they come in when they come in. Yeah. And it's my job to be able to and a lot of the other young men that are here, is to be able to protect you guys and make sure that you guys are safe. And what we saw on the day of the raids last time was they were targeting the non-indigenous allies that were there just to video. Mm-hmm. And so one of those people was picked up and slammed to the ground and dragged through the mud, and phone busted, and like, so these are very, very real concerns for folks like myself that are, you know, tasked with making sure that you guys are safe.
With it's by no means anywhere near the kind of harassment or intimidation that you've experienced, but just last week, in working on this project that I'm on, I was filming at the community center where the OPP have their staging area. It's their occupation of the community center, right? But of course, it's in Haldimand County's interest, so they're on board with it, right? But I was out there filming, and I had ultimately four police officers approach me while I was filming. I don't identify myself, but I did inform them that I'm filming for a video project that I'm working on, for a documentary. And long story short, I tried to get out of that parking lot in my own vehicle without them spotting my plate. And because they couldn't see it without following me, they jumped in their two marked units, were trailing me all around the town. They followed me. And when I went for the reserve, they broke off, right? And I knew that. So I feel that I probably shouldn't have done that because I was taking advantage of basically your protection, right? So when I went to confront a sergeant, the CO for all of the constables here, he was very polite but very disinterested in helping me as to why they were harassing someone covering this story, right?
Did he tell you it was for your own safety?
Yeah, for my own safety. They wanted to make sure there were no issues with my license, right? That's effectively what he said. And again, that small amount of intimidation, it's happened to me before in multiple countries, some with more and or less protections. But it's only a small piece of what you guys have to deal with daily, weekly, through the course of your life, right? So, I mean, whatever little bit of harassment that I get over sharing your story, it's ultimately for a better good, I think. So I want to be able to tell your story.
And we appreciate that. Yeah. Let me tell you, I really, really appreciate that. And I wish I had all the time in the world to be able to do, 1,000 of these interviews a day, because it's a story that needs to be told, and it is a difficult one for a lot of people to be able to trust and to feel comfortable enough to be able to share, those bits of of hardship that our people have gone through. And like,
one of the reasons why I asked you that my last question was what should I do to better tell this story is because I sometimes feel that when I go to a particular group, whether it's a racialized group, whether it's a gender minority or a sexual minority, whenever I go to someone and I'm asking to share their stories, I almost feel like I'm putting them on a burden to share their whole group's shared life experience, right? And it's impossible to do that.
Yep.
So I'm trying to, when I ask people questions, whether it's on the record or off the record, I'm always trying to I don't want them to have to retell all of human history going back to the beginning. But sometimes I think there's a lot of people, and I've been asking my community, the people that follow me as a filmmaker and as a photographer, I ask them, what don't you know about this? And those usually inform my questions, and that does require me sometimes to go back to what is the difference between a hereditary tribe and an elected band council, right?
Yep.
And specifically about this property, I think a lot of people don't realize that this is the first step of a larger redevelopment, right?
and so the tribe thing, like we don't call ourselves tribe. We're a nation.
Yeah.
We're an entire nation.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so,
I'm just using their language
absolutely.
because
Yeah.
I don't think they would understand that. And to be honest, I only half understand it too.
Yeah.
So I'm no better than anyone else, right?
Yeah.
The only benefit is I have the time and resources to be able to, and I guess technical expertise to be
Yep.
able to record those stories and be able to distribute to a small but significant enough
Sure.
audience. And I absolutely thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you very much.
One of the things that I do, maybe some people don't like this, maybe some do, but I don't like to edit my conversations. I like just to let them run raw and just, sometimes that catches people say I talk too much or I sound stupid. But I mean, I just leave it in there. So I'm gonna publish this unedited, just as is, and because I think your answers are going to inform at least my audience for sure. So
Right on.
thank you.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely, thank you for your time, eh?
No problem.
Take care, eh?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, and.